Hey guys, it's been a long time. It's been a month, but I said that hey, we might not talk for a while because there's nothing to talk about, and I'm not just this is a Dolphins recap page, and I cover the Dolphins. And if it's your first time, I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan, and just like you, I just love the Dolphins. And I don't really do the X's and O's thing. Like, I watch the games, but I don't really know as much as these other sports shows. So that's what you watch those shows for. This is just a show for you to feel better about being a Dolphins fan. And that's not easy. But guess what? We're in the biggest rebuild of our lives, of our whole lives. This is bigger than the 2020 rebuild, the 2019 rebuild. And we went into a draft with 13 picks, and we did a couple trades. And guess what? We came out with 13 players. And before we even get started, I just want to say that's a lot of players, and there's a lot of good that can come from that. And maybe you guys are like unsure about some players, but this is the most important thing and the most positive thing you have to have from this is of 13 players picked. Statistically, if 3 or 4 of them are Pro Bowlers, then this is a good draft. Okay, so I need you to be there mentally. I need you to know that if 4 of these guys end up being Pro Bowlers, we have a good future on our hands. I mean, a lot of drafts, you're lucky if you get one of the guys that's pretty good, that stays on the team more than 5 years, or that pans out and is like, okay, this is a consistent player, even if he's mediocre, right? You know what I mean? Like, even if Austin Jackson, you would say was a bust for a first round pick, right? But he's still on the team, and he's on year 7, and he's with us, and maybe that's not worth a first round. The way Austin Jackson is like a third or fourth round, right? But if any of our third or fourth round picks were like Austin Jackson, you'd be like, okay, fine, right? So that's how you got to look at it. And then you look at like someone like Zach Sealer, who was a practice squad guy that made the team. If 3 of the guys we drafted end up being like a Zach Sealer type player, you would be very happy with that. Do you see what I'm saying? You got to look at it like that. If we get 4 guys that end up being Pro Bowlers or even above average, that's a good draft for us. And then you got next year's draft, and then you add free agents, and then you hope you're in a groove of a playoff. You're an organization that's consistently looking to make the playoffs or, be great and maybe try to go for a Super Bowl. So, I mean, look, this is based off of what I've heard. We don't really know. Let's also say that. At the end of the day, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen. If you go look at all the previous drafts and you look at the whole first round, how many of those guys actually pan out? Maybe 10, if not less. So we don't know. It's a little bit of luck. Here's what we can be excited about. That's all I can really say, and that's what this channel's for. Like and subscribe. Comment on the channel. Tell me what you think, but I'm here to build a podcast and hopefully do live podcast shows recapping the Miami Dolphins on the road and in Florida one day. So help me build that by subscribing. Our first pick, Caden Proctor. Based off of what everyone's saying, this is the biggest guy for how athletic he is. Like the most athletic, biggest guy in the draft. And whether they have him at right tackle, right guard, or left guard, he's a big piece that we need on our line. If you look at it right now, you have Patrick Paul. You have Brewer at center. And then in the depth situations, you have Austin Jackson. They signed a couple other guys. And then you have our rookie who was pretty much a bust last year with, the Hawaiian guy. So he's our guard, right? So now you add Proctor, who's going to be a starter somewhere on that line. He's going to be one of the best 5. So you could argue that you have 3 solid linemen now. 3 solid linemen, and then we could see what happens with Austin Jackson and some of the depth. But now you got 3 key pieces. Not a lot of teams could say they have 3 solid linemen. That's something, I feel like this is the most exciting offensive line the Dolphins have had in the last decade. I feel like the offensive line has been one of the biggest problems, and, something we addressed was right away, let's bring in some free agents that we signed that are linemen. you have depth, and then your first overall pick that you hope this guy's on the team for the next 10 years is a lineman that can play all the positions. He can line up at any of the guard positions or tackle positions, and that's why they got him. They talked about how, look, we didn't only want a guy who was specific in one position. We wanted a guy that we knew could be line up anywhere on the offensive line. Look, could they have drafted? Did I want Caleb Downs? I did. I definitely wanted Caleb Downs. Why? Because I don't know. Because I heard his name a lot, and he was sitting there for us, but we traded back and got more picks, and then we still got who they wanted. They were high on this guy, and you know what? Linemen are always boring picks, but they're great. They're great for what we have. Look at Patrick Paul. He was a second or third rounder, and he's great. He's a great starter for us. Brewer's a great starter. This guy's going to turn into a great starter. You assume. And then, we have a free agent, and who knows what goes on from there, but it's a good, solid way to start your franchise, or if you're starting over, right? We cleaned house. This is the most we've ever cleaned. So, look, he was going to probably go around anywhere from pick 15 to 20. We got him a little bit early at 12, but that's who they wanted. That's who they were high on. So, look, you weren't going to get that. Look, if that cornerback was there, Delaney, would they have drafted him? I don't know. Maybe they would have. Right? Maybe they would have drafted him and then traded up for Proctor, which would have been even better, but he wasn't. So we drafted him, and that's the first good pick that people are pretty much saying, look, might have been a little bit early, but it's a good pick. It's a solid pick. Most of the shows I watch like him. The second pick, Chris Johnson, he's the second cornerback taken off in the draft. So he's the second best cornerback. Now, they say after Delaney, the next best cornerback would be like, nobody wanted to take McCoy because of his knee injury. A lot of pre-draft, we thought maybe he was going to get taken. And even I remember hearing his name as like, oh, I hope he's there in the third round for us. Maybe we take a chance on this guy with his knee injury. Although we've had bad luck with drafting guys with injuries. So Chris Johnson, I don't know about him. I watched his interview. Love his attitude. I love his attitude. Go watch his press conference. I like him. I like his attitude, and from what I'm hearing, this is a solid pick. The second best cornerback in the draft is really up for grabs. So he is a good pick at where we got him. We traded up for him, and then a couple other cornerbacks go in the early second round. Those guys are good too, but this is the guy they were high on. Of all the cornerbacks, you knew they were going to get a quarterback with one of the first two picks, right? So they interviewed all these cornerbacks, and they're like, look, we want this guy. We traded up for him in the second round. We want to get him. So they could have taken any cornerback they wanted. This is the second quarterback taking in the draft. So if you look at any draft, the top 5 cornerbacks in every draft are usually pretty good starters around the league. So we got one of those. This guy could be a day one starter, and it fills a big hole for us. So there you go. Third pick, Jacob Rodriguez. I had never heard of him. Then some of my buddies who follow college football said he was a beast. Look, you got this guy on the inside, and he's a linebacker with Jordan Brooks. It's like an immediate problem for the defense, okay? People are really excited about this. People are saying that this is one of our best picks. This is one of our best draft picks. This guy, Texas Tech, like Zach Thomas, we have a lot of things to be excited about with this guy. And it's not only Jacob Rodriguez, it's the other linebacker we took later on, Kyle Lewis. These two guys were huge in the Senior Bowl. Apparently, they were stopping all of the defensive plays and making it hard for anyone to get anything going. So that's a good sign. I don't know where he's going to line up. I know we have Jordan Brooks, and I know he seems like he would be the heart of the defense, but that's a great guy to learn from. He said he's been in contact with him. I'm excited because I feel like we haven't had an exciting linebacker since, I don't know, Zach Thomas, to be honest. And I know the middle linebacker position is not the same as it was in the 90s and early 2000s, right? Because it's way more of a passing game, and it's all about edge. And we haven't had an edge since Jason Taylor that's as good as Jason Taylor or Cameron Wake, right? And we're looking for that, and we hope we get it with Chop Robinson. And now you have another guy. We drafted an edge later, but right now with our linebacker core, with Kyle Lewis, Jacob Rodriguez, Jordan Brooks, Tyler Dotson. You got to feel good with just those four guys if you ran a 3-4, which we don't know if they're running a 4-3 or 3-4 yet. I'm pretty sure they're going to do it based off of personnel. But if you ran a 3-4 and you got those four linebackers out there, and then you got Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, and Chop Robinson rotating in there with maybe this Tyler Moore guy who that's a wild card. That's an exciting. I think that's something to be excited about. I would be more excited about that than last year's. So I don't know. That's really cool. I still think our weaknesses are cornerbacks and secondary. Hopefully Chris Johnson becomes a star. We want one of these draft picks, our second or third pick. We want them to be in the running for defensive rookie of the year. We need that. We need a defensive rookie of the year, especially based off of all the guys we got. Now, are any of our wide receivers going to be offensive rookie of the year? I highly doubt that. But here's how I look at the offensive part. Our fourth pick, Caleb Douglas, this is what everyone's kind of talking about being like the worst pick. Maybe a reach. What do we know? Okay? But this is how I look at it, right? You got Caleb Douglas. People are upset. Who knows? But then you got Chris Bell, who people said got him for great value in the third round. And they said if he doesn't get hurt, he's a first-round pick. So you have Chris Bell, Caleb Douglas, and Kevin Coleman Jr., and you get him later in the fifth. So now look at it like this. Instead of being like, I don't like where they were drafted, look at it like you got three wide receivers in this draft. If one of them pans out, that's a win. I don't need all three of these to be good. I don't need two of these to be good. If one of these guys becomes a consistent 1,000-yard receiver, then we won. We have 13 picks. 3 of them are wide receivers. 1 of them has to be good. All we need is one of them to be putting up Waddle numbers, if not even better than Waddle. You know what I mean? If one of these guys consistently puts up, let's say one of these rookies puts up 1,000 yards this year, or even 600 to 800, and then next year elevates his game to over 1,000, that's a win. That's a win for us. All we need is one of these wide receivers to become a franchise wide receiver that like puts up numbers like Chris Chambers, Jalen Waddle. He's in the top 10. Oh, we look back 5 years from now, we're like, this guy's going to be a top 10 wide receiver in Miami Dolphins history. That's all we need. One of these 3 to pan out. That's it. That's a win. If one of these pans out, and then of your first 3 picks, Proctor, Chris Johnson, and Rodriguez, if one of those pans out, that's a win. You hope that 2 of those, you hope all 3. You hope Caden Proctor, Chris Johnson, and Jacob Rodriguez become a staple in who this franchise is. But if only 2 of those hit, that's great. And then if one of these 3 wide receivers hits, that's even better, right? That's how you got to look at it. Don't look at, hey, we took Caleb Douglas early. Look at it that we got 3 wide receivers, and their names are Caleb Douglas, Chris Bell, and Kevin Coleman Jr. One of them has to be a guy whose jersey we buy. That's how it's got to be. We got to buy one of these guys' jerseys, and then we'll see what's up. And that's how you can evaluate this draft. Okay? In your later rounds, you have Trey Moore and then Michael Taff. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's like either a safety or maybe like a hybrid linebacker. So if one of those 2 even pans out to be like a Van Ginkel, like just, or even like, just a utility guy that adds depth, that's a win. And those are 2 late round guys. Okay? You got to look at it like that. That's the way I would look at it. And then we got 2 tight ends. Not excited about them. I don't know much about them. Obviously, I wanted that Stowers guy. But if you look at the tight end position, one of them they say is one of the really a high blocking at tight end, like that's really really good at run block and pass block, which I think is important. I don't know if either of these tight ends are going to be guys who will put up 800, 900 yards, but maybe that's not what they're looking for offensively. Maybe they have Malik Willis. They know he's a scrambler, so they want a guy who is extending the line a little bit, who adds a threat to maybe dump the ball off. I don't need a guy who can run up the seam or go up the middle and catch, get 700 yards receiving in a year, because we got our big guys on the outside. You got HN, and you got the run option with Malik Willis. So maybe they're running a different type of offense, but that's something important. If one of these tight ends ends up being a consistent tight end, then that's all you go. Then that's a win. And I think those are the important things of the way you want to look at this draft. You want to look at this draft and be excited for the 13 guys and know that if 4 of them are players that are on this team for 10 years, then we won. You got to assume half of them are not going to be good. Half of them might not even be on the team in 3 years, realistically. Your late round picks. But with your 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends, if 2 of those 5 players, that's not hard. That's less than 50% of them. If 2 of the 5 players of the 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends hit, we're money. And then you have Kyle Lewis, Trey Moore, and the Michael Taffe guy. Those guys, you're like, one of those hit, right? If one of those hits, you're money. You're money, right? That's how I look at it. And then we got these late round picks who, look, are they going to make the team? We don't know. You have Max Llewellyn or whatever. He's an edge. Whatever. Maybe he makes special teams. But, when you get a guy in the 6th, 7th round, a lot of the time these guys are fighting for special team spots, right? And they got DJ Campbell, an offensive guard. I mean, can he be any worse than what we've had to deal with? What if what if he outplays Savion, whatever his last name is? Who knows? Let's see what he is. He's 6'3", 313. That's a big guy. Position rank 18. Whatever. And then the max guy is position rank 32. Really ranked low, but he's a big guy, 6'6". Okay? And then you have, the second tight end, 6'4", big guy, out of Mississippi State. You never know. But this safety guy, 5'11", small guy, special teams guy. Kevin Coleman Jr., 5'10", not really a speed guy. Maybe he's a special teams guy too. But if you look at the first 4 rounds, Kyle Lewis, these are the guys you want to be excited about. You got Kyle Lewis, Trey Moore. That guy's 6'2". He's a big guy. Maybe he puts some pressure on Chop Robinson. He develops him. It adds competition to it. And then you got your 3 wide receivers. So, look, based off of the shows I've watched, this is something I think we have to be excited about. I was more worried that, are we going to actually draft all these guys? Are we going to trade picks and we're going to move up and we're going to try to do different things? The fact that we have 13 players coming into training camp, that's awesome, right? 13 players. You have 13 new players. This is how you start a new organization. This is how you bring in a new culture. You have 13 guys that are going to learn football through our new coaching staff, through our new GM. This is the way you would do it. You groom them and train them into hey, this is what we want to be, and this is what we want you to teach people that come in the future drafts. Because if these 13 guys, let's say we get lucky enough and 10 of these guys are on this team for 4 years. These 10 guys are going to set the tone for the next 3 drafts after that. And assume that they're going to keep drafting. Look, let's say we only have 5 draft picks next year because we do trades. We probably won't. We'll probably have more than 7. Let's say you bring in another 8 guys next year. That's 21 guys. That's half of the starters. That's mostly all the starters. There's 22 starters. That's half of the team would be drafted in the last 2 years. The culture is from what we've drafted. So I think that's exciting. I think it's cool that we drafted 13 guys. And then the fact that, look, if we just hit on 4 of them, that's a win. But if we hit on 6 or 7, we might have a great team. When's the last time someone drafted 13 guys? That's incredible. That's all I got, really. We don't really have any other news coming up until, June when we start camp. There might be some late free agent signings. But, look, it's going to be a long season. We probably won't win 6 games. And if we do win 6 games, that's something to be very excited about. If you win 6 games this first year and you just drafted 13 players and Malik Willis looks good, great. If he doesn't look good, we win 5 games, we know we have a top 10 pick and we know there's 4 to 5 quarterbacks coming out. So that's something else to be excited about. And then you could have a good team that this quarterback plugs in, and you could have a Jaden Daniels Washington situation where you could go to the NFC Championship game in your first season. For us, AFC Championship game. But you never know. We're building the culture right now, and that's exciting. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe, and maybe I'll see you in a couple of weeks. But take the summer off, watch those sports channels, have fun. But no, I will always be here, and when football season comes, recaps every week.